Hello, League of Wildness. Wildman Dan here, and welcome to the Live Wild or Die podcast. In this episode, I wanted to dive deep and reflect on a recent post I made on Threads. I want to say tweet, but it's a post, I guess, right? Is that what we're calling it on Threads? Are they posts? Or threads, I guess? But here's what it was. So my favorite quote right now is Relentless Forward Progress. Relentless Forward Progress. I believe the first person I heard that from was the Wildman John. We were talking about ultra running and this mindset you have to have of just one foot in front of the other, one step in front of the other, that relentless forward progress. And for me recently, this has kind of really come back into the forefront of my mind. Earlier this year, I was stressed bad, and it made me not want to do it anymore. It made me not want to do wild gym anymore. Frankly, I was just so stressed, but I was able to kind of fight through that. And now I'm in a really good spot. And that mindset of that relentless forward progress has been a huge help. So I just kind of wanted to dive deep into it and dissect some of the kind of subtleties of this quote. So to start with, what's really worked for me is I had all this negative energy, all these negative thoughts, this stress. It was just ubiquitous. So essentially what I had to do was just train my mind to essentially block out the negative. As soon as I would start to get into these negative thought loops, basically what I'm able to do now is just break them and it almost feels physical. It feels like I'm physically pushing them out of my mind. So I essentially do not allow these thought loops to perpetuate. It's not that they don't come in there. It's not that they're totally gone, but I do not allow them to perpetuate and then cycle in this feedback loop. It's not easy. It's a very kind of stoic concept. It's definitely not easy, but it is something that if you are self-aware and conscious of, you can start to kind of slowly chip away at those negative thoughts. And kind of like working out, as you do it more, you get your resilience, your robustness, your capacity to push those negative thoughts out and break those thought loops is much more effective. You're stronger mentally. And I think one thing that's helped a lot is, and this has been kind of a recurring theme in just kind of my business life, is when the company was first launched, you're always, especially in those early days, we were pitching, we were doing these business plan competitions, and you're always kind of projecting out to arriving at this future place where you're doing millions of dollars in revenue and there's milk and honey flowing and life is good. However, what I've really come to realize recently is that focusing really on the process is what leads to a much, much more peaceful life. So basically what I'm doing now is just trying to focus on the process and not the outcome. And it's not that you don't plan for the outcome. It's not that you don't think about an outcome. It's not that you don't have a goal, but on a day-to-day kind of action basis, I'm really focusing on creating processes and having a process, focusing on the process versus constantly looking at this future goal. And it's essentially, I'm measuring inputs instead of results. So what I'm, for example, I have examples right here. Let's start with fitness. So instead of saying, let's say your fitness goal it's a general fitness goal. You want to lose a few pounds and get in better shape. That's very general. Instead of every day stepping on the scale and focusing on body fat percentage, performance, whatever it is, instead if you focus on the inputs, which in this example would be measuring and tracking your workouts completed. So those are the inputs that you are putting in to get a desired outcome. If you focus on that, you track that. Essentially, if you make that kind of the results in a way, the outcome that you want is almost guaranteed. So for example, if you do the workouts consistently, you're going to lose weight, you're going to lower your body fat percentage, you're going to improve performance. That's pretty much a guarantee if you make doing the inputs your number one priority. Okay, so that was a fitness example. For business. So for example, what I've been thinking about a lot for honestly years is just creating content and having a content plan and all this stuff. And I've written out, I don't even know how many, I've written out these plans and I'll kind of start them and then for whatever reason, they won't be maintained. What I'm doing now is I'm really focusing on creating content and making that, like the creation, that's the goal. Creating the content, that input, the outcome might be increased revenue, might be increased followers, things of that nature. But what I'm making the goal is the input. So I'm kind of just freewheeling right now, but it's almost like making the goal instead of the goal, make the input the goal. I like that. Okay, personal life. So again, I think one reason I mentioned these kind of dark times earlier this year was I wasn't prioritizing the things that I know bring me joy, and I think happiness would be a fair word. So that's getting outside, spending time with friends, and really adventuring with friends. So it's like that synergy of getting outside with friends in this adventure context that really just brings so much satisfaction for me. So for my personal life, so it's been scheduling and prioritizing time with friends and family versus this kind of like analyzing, am I happy, or trying to read something that'll inspire me to be happy or anything like that. Focusing on the inputs, they're going to have a very high probability of, maybe it's not happiness, but it's contentment, satisfaction, just a moment of joy, anything like that. Again, focusing on the inputs versus trying to have some sort of like future goal to arrive at. And I've mentioned this before, and I think that's been a recurring theme for me. I just had a conversation with a friend from one of my best friends from high school. We were rucking a local mountain here in Colorado, just kind of chatting life. And I was talking about that book, 4,000 Weeks, and how it really made me aware of, I was really in this kind of macro thought loop of always trying to arrive at some future state when it was essentially impossible. My last note I have here is, it's less about doing more and more about being consistent and really never quitting. So kind of going back to that initial quote, which inspired these thoughts, was that relentless forward progress. It's really about just not quitting. So oftentimes I think I'm super guilty of this myself, but there's always this pressure, I feel like, to do more when maybe it's not even doing more. It's just not quitting the stuff you're already doing. So I think that's a pretty good place to leave it. So thank you guys for tuning in. I like these kind of micro thought sessions. We'll start throwing some of these in. Much love. Many of you guys have been listening for a long time. If you could leave us a 5-star review, that would be awesome. That would help spread the good word of the wild and grow the League of Wildness. All right, guys, much love, and I'll see you guys out there.